This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. Today's video builds on yesterday's discussion, which I intentionally kept separate to avoid overwhelming you with heavy topics. Yesterday, we explored Europe's push to restrict free speech and privacy under the guise of child safety. Today, we'll dive into Meghan and Harry's role in America, where a similar pivot, using children as a Trojan horse, has raised serious concerns. First, let me share a quick article from Reclaim the Net to set the stage. Written by Didi Rankovic, it begins, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are inserting themselves into the debate around online safety of minors through a series of events and initiatives. While this is undoubtedly a worthy cause, when judged by the declared intent alone, things become controversial and complicated with legislative efforts lacking proper privacy and security safeguards. By either not dealing with the ramifications of age verification and digital ID or actively attacking end-to-end encryption, these efforts could serve as the building blocks of a future expansive censorship and surveillance infrastructure, exposing all internet users to it. Yet, Meghan and Harry's Archewell Fugazi Public Charities Parents Network is fully behind proposals like the Take It Down Act. The bill is supposed to deal with real and AI-generated non-consensual intimate imagery, but digital rights activists criticize it precisely for the lack of safeguards and the wider censorship potential. The Fugazi Foundation is also working together with a number of child safety groups, including the UK's Five Rights Foundation, which has endorsed the sweeping censorship law, the Online Safety Act, and is a longtime proponent of online age verification. Supporters of badly formulated too broad or vague legislation, which courts in the U.S. are more and more frequently finding incompatible with the Constitution, often turn to emotionally charged testimonies and cases as a means to advance their point of view. In other words, what Harry and Meghan love to do best is pull on those heartstrings. In New York, Harry took the opportunity to declare that life is better off social media and insinuate that children are currently being lost to social media, which requires things to change. He referred to the memorial as a powerful call to action for urgent online safety reform. Another event he took part in was a roundtable hosted by the Responsible Tech Youth Power Fund, which has received funding from the Archewell Fugazi Public Charity and Melinda French Gates Pivotal Ventures, among others. More regulation along the path laid out by the already existing and proposed new law was urged during this gathering as well. So, as you can see, it's very clear that Harry and Meghan's consistent work that they've been doing these past 5 years has always been to tear down the Constitution. This is why all the work that they've been doing that does not have any kind of craziness or not making any kind of sense has been dedicated towards pushing reform and policies within our government. So the question is, why is that? Well, I think it's important to take a look at the people that Harry and Meghan have surrounded themselves with to understand a little bit more. One of Archewell Fugazi Public Charities' key partners alongside the Five Rights Foundation is the NSPCC, which is the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. In my opinion, I find it really peculiar that Harry and Meghan chose a UK-based charity where Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, serves as a patron and works on similar initiatives to protect kids online. Now, I think this overlap feels a little bit awkward, as Sophie's efforts to promote NSPCC could inadvertently endorse Archewell's Parents Network by extension. We're supposed to believe that the family is not in contact with these two, and one would think that after all that Meghan Markle has done to them, the royal family would stay clear of any type of association with the dastardly duo. So in my opinion, I think Sophie does wonderful work for women and children, and I'd love to see her channel that passion into tackling the pressing child abuse issues like the grooming gangs in the UK. Perhaps with organizations that don't carry NSPCC's complex and dark history or connections to Meghan Markle. I only learned about NSPCC's troubling past yesterday while digging into the people behind Archwell's questionable initiative. You might want to sit down for this one because it may leave you feeling a little uneasy. So, Sophie came on board as the patron of this organization at the beginning of 2015. If I had to guess, Sophie was part of the PR strategy to rehabilitate the image of the NSPCC and regain trust of the public. Now, according to the marketed public spin, the NSPCC rebranded in 2014 to shift its focus from highlighting the problem of child abuse to emphasizing solutions and prevention, aiming to boost public engagement and donations. The charity's research revealed low emotional connection to its previous Full Stop campaign, which ended in 2008, and a perception that the NSPCC only dealt with extreme abuse cases, making its work seem irrelevant to many. The new strapline, "Every childhood is worth fighting for," replaced "Cruelty to children must stop," full stop, to convey a more positive, family-friendly message and better reflect the charity's preventative services. This was driven by a need to reverse declining income, engaging wider audiences, and align fundraising with the NSPCC's on-the-ground work. The rebranding cost £150,000, was supported by internal teams and pro bono agency work. Now, that's what they told the public, but after doing some research and digging, I have a different perspective, and it's quite skeptical. The NSPCC's 2014 rebranding. It was marketed as a shift from highlighting child abuse to emphasizing prevention and solutions with the strapline that they had out there, "Every childhood is worth fighting for." To me, that smells like a calculated PR move with a real pivot. The charity's stated goal was to boost public engagement and reverse the declining donations, right? Meaning that they were losing money. So there was a reason for why they were losing money. During that time, if we go back thanks to the internet, it's hard to ignore that the NSPCC was neck deep in associations with high-profile figures linked to allegations of child abuse and trafficking. Just a year after Jimmy Savile's death in 2011, the 2012 revelations exposed him as a prolific sexual predator who'd abused hundreds over decades, often leveraging his celebrity status and charity work, including ties to the NSPCC, to gain access to victims. The NSPCC's Full Stop campaign, which Savile and other questionable figures like Rolf Harris supported, was already under scrutiny. Harris, convicted in 2014 of indecent assaults on minors, had been a visible NSPCC fundraiser, appearing in their films as far as back as the 1960s. Then there's Prince Andrew, a longtime NSPCC patron whose close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, both central to a notorious sex trafficking ring, raised many red flags. Now add to that Lord Peter Mandelson, who is the British ambassador currently to the United States, another NSPCC patron during the Full Stop campaign, who was also photographed shopping with Epstein in 2005 and maintained a long-standing friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell. Mandelson's involvement with the NSPCC, alongside his elite connections to the Rothschilds and Clintons, both tied to Epstein, fuels a suspicion of a deeper, darker systemic issue. The NSPCC's leadership also included figures like Peter Wanless, who chaired a 2014 Home Office review into historic abuse allegations while allegedly protecting powerful figures like Michael Portillo, What's really interesting here is that Peter Wanless stepped down as the executive of NSPCC at the end of 2024 and now has gone over to Five Rights Foundation, which happens to be another organization that is a part of this Archewell Fugazi Public Charities Parents Network. I'd like to note that Five Rights Foundation, based in the UK, has been sticking its nose here in the United States in trying to push policy and regulation in DC. They were part of the movement to get the COSA bill signed, which was the Kids Online Safety Act. Now, a little fun fact about Sir Peter Wanless, the good little government servant he is that in 2014, he co-led a government commission review into how Home Office files from 1979 to 1999 were handled regarding suspected historical child abuse. So to give you some context into what this is about, in 1984, Geoffrey Dickens, a conservative MP, handed a dossier of alleged PD files within the British establishment to then Home Secretary Leon Brittan. Brittan confirmed he had received it and passed it to officials, but the dossier was never found again. Well, naturally, there was outrage by the public and forced the government to open an independent inquiry, to which Peter Wanless co-led that with Mark Sedwell, and came back saying, "Nothing to see here, folks. All good. No wrongdoing, no cover-up," even though 114 files allegedly had been deliberately buried or destroyed, still sparking suspicion that this was indeed a cover-up at the highest levels. This was the guy who was CEO of the NSPCC, now over at Five Rights Foundation, pushing censorship under the guise of online child safety. But let's get back to the NSPCC organization and its high-profile figures from 1999 to 2010. During that period of time, Prince Andrew, Tony Blair, Naomi Campbell, Richard Branson, Ghislaine Maxwell. Apparently, Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, had connections to this organization, and in the mid-1980s, the Duke of Westminster formed a working group to raise funds for the NSPCC. Robert Maxwell was a member of this group. I mean, the who's who of the UK elite had come out to support stopping the abuse of children. So now, in parallel of Prince Andrew being a patron of this NSPCC organization from 1999 to almost 2010, his relationship with Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein had begun cooking up. So now, according to Whitney Webb's One Nation Under Blackmail, in Volume 2, she writes, reports from the UK between 2000 and 2001 on the Epstein-Prince Andrew relationship are rather revealing. Perhaps unsurprisingly, many of them were apparently scrubbed from the internet around the time of Epstein's first arrest and subsequent conviction. These reports not only reference Epstein's connection to both U.S. and Israeli intelligence years before the first investigation into Epstein's exploitation of minors began, but also reveal surprising aspects of Prince Andrew's involvement with Epstein that strongly suggests that the prince partook in illicit sexual activities to a much greater extent than has previously been reported. What's more concerning is what she says next. It is worth examining why Epstein and Maxwell were interested in associating so closely with Prince Andrew and enticing him to partake in their illicit activities at this point in time. One possible motive may lie in gaining access to certain philanthropies, as the British royal family are active patrons of various children's charities. Access to powerful philanthropies appears to be one of the reasons for Epstein's increasingly public association with Bill Clinton during this same period. For instance, while Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell were reportedly partying in New York during April 2000, Prince Andrew also attended a patron's company lunch for the Outward Bound Trust as a trustee on April 14, 2000 at Buckingham Palace. This may also have been attractive to sex traffickers like Epstein and Maxwell, as the Outward Bound Trust is an educational charity which takes more than 25,000 young people each year, many from deprived areas, to climb mountains, sleep under the stars, and brave the elements in the wild places of the UK. You know, you have to ask this question as to why is this charity so focused on regulating the internet for children? The logic that these people who are pushing for censorship have pertaining to invading privacy and removing encryption and being able to push out information and prioritize the algorithms is about keeping kids safe and reducing harm. But I'm thinking that might not be the case. I'm thinking this is more to protect the predators than anything else. As is today, the people who are in charge of keeping kids safe are not doing their jobs. They're sitting on troves of information and not acting on it. Who's to say when they get more information, being able to scan and profile these children, that they're not going to use it for sinister purposes? Look how they covered up that grooming gang scandal. Police, MPs, judges, all were protected. You know, it's really interesting. During the same period that Andrew was patron of this NSPCC, Isabel Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, was head of an Israeli tech company that protects children online. Literally at the same time when her sister, Ghislaine, was actively abusing and trafficking minors as a part of an intelligence-linked operation alongside Jeffrey Epstein. The company back then was called iCognito, now named PureSight, and this is what it looks like. I'm a bit creeped out. So this app is in Israel, but I'm sure that its software is being licensed out to other third parties to repackage and put on children's phones. Now, I don't know about you. I wouldn't be so comfortable knowing that the woman who was the head of this company, Isabel Maxwell, is sisters with Ghislaine Maxwell, who is literally in jail for trafficking minors. I don't know, folks. I wouldn't feel so safe about that. Especially knowing now, as word on the street coming out, is that potentially this is tied to Israeli intelligence. Like, who would be that stupid to put this shit on their devices? I mean, let's be real here, folks. What is going on? You know, it's like really concerning to me that the UK is a major driving force in all these regulations to clamp down on speech as well as to erode privacy. But more concerning is protecting these predators while having access to information about your child. That's the bigger concern that I have here. You know, I would be all in for this if we had governments and people in power who were honest, but seeing how dirty these people are, you can't trust them. You can put all the guardrails you want in place. There's still going to be people who are going to abuse the system. And parents giving more access to data that the government has no business having, I'm sorry, decline that. Pull your kid off of social media. Pull your kid offline, period. Now, I think this is a really good place for me to stop. I don't want to get any deeper, especially surrounding the people that have been historically tied to the NSPCC, like the Rothschilds. I mean, this stuff gets really dark. But I will say, after going through the history and understanding possibly why Donald Trump is not releasing any information on Epstein, is because I would think a lot of these people that I just went through, I mean, I think there's thousands of them that are of high profile stature that have been involved with this dirtiness. And that's all I can say is that it's just dirtiness. And I can see how this could be very crippling and damaging to companies, to governments. I mean, it's probably so bad that it's going to change or affect us in certain ways that will never be the same again. I guarantee that. You know, I'm at this point where I don't think I want to know about all the dirtiness that these people are doing with children. Just lock them up and get them off the street. Clean house and put some good, decent people in power so we could serve God. That's really it. Right now, we are going down the wrong path. If this is what's really going on in the world, with children, then these people need to be gutted out of the government. Out. My gorgeous, good-looking friends, before I go, I have to ask, what do you think about Sophie being the patron of this NSPCC organization with a heavy push in online safety? Do you not find it bizarre and awkward that Archwell is also aligned with this organization? Now, I'm not disagreeing. We do need methods to keep our kids safe from predators online. But the question is, the people who are pushing this stuff out, are they necessarily the right people who are doing it for the right reasons? You know, it's unfortunate that anything that Harry and Meghan touch, I certainly don't trust. But then you add the layer of Sophie being patron of this organization and also heavily pushing for online safety. It makes you wonder, especially since there's a bigger problem in the UK that needs addressing that this organization could be tackling, but they are falling short. And I'm talking about these grooming gangs. But that's just my opinion. Anyhow, I would love to know what you think. Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.